It turned out to be hobbies. When I was a little girl, I had different hobbies. I stayed active in hobbies and everything like this. As we were growing up, in the world that I live in, the girls don't get into boyfriends and all of that. So it's best to just stay active. And I stayed active, you know. When I grew up in Chicago, my mother and father and my grandparents lived in Mississippi. So when we used to go to the Muslim school, Muhammad's University of Islam, we only had the last 2 weeks in August as a vacation. Mm-hmm. For the whole time. Other than that, we went through school all year round, except for those last 2 weeks in August. And so we would drive down to Mississippi, get in the car, drive down to Mississippi. And when we got there, my grandparents owned farms. They call it the Ali compound. And a lot of families living on the same land. And they had horses, cows, sheep, goats, and they had wheat and cotton, and they had a business of making syrup, molasses, sorghum, that kind of thing for the whole community. Mm-hmm. So in order for them to have the milk cows in the barn or in the pen so they can milk them in the morning, I had to go out, get on the horse, and round up the milk cows out of the pasture to put them in for the next morning. So that automatically made me a cowgirl. So I would go out and do that. And that's when I got in the love for horses and everything.
And I just want to kind of just dive right into it.
Just
we knew you are a Muslim, but were you born in that?
I was born in it, yes.
Now, Islam allows a man to marry more than one woman. In your book, you say that you do not appreciate it, but you understood it. Can you explain that?
Oh, wow. Well, in certain countries, men marrying more than one woman deserve a certain requirement. If the man is wealthy enough, and see, this started because of the fact that way back in the Prophet Muhammad days, may peace and blessing be upon him, they had wars. And most of the men died in the wars. So it was more women than it was men. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the men took certain families and took care of them. It wasn't about marriage like we have. And it wasn't about going with the wife, his wife, as being like we have husband and wives.
Yeah.
They just took over the families to take care of the family since the father passed away or died in war. And then what they would do is make a proclamation for them to marry a certain family. And so he would take care of those wives. It wasn't about the wives being with the husbands. It was a different thing. It was just supporting those families. Mm-hmm. And it grew into, when they stopped all the wars and everything, they kind of kept the tradition, but they made the tradition if a man was wealthy enough to take care of two wives, whatever that he could afford to take care of equally, then they would do that. But in the Holy Quran, it says it's best to only have one if you only knew. Yeah. That's stated in the Quran. So we know one man cannot take care of two women equally, let alone four. But these are the laws of that land, though. In America, marrying one wife is sufficient. If you try to marry two, it's called bigamy. So you're breaking the laws of the land. Bigamy. But it's a lot of people have certain religious rituals, like the Amish or the Mormons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They have their little philosophies and rituals that doesn't agree with Americans' policy. That's why they live together in a certain commune.
Do you think that Islam is too restrictive for women?
No. I think, see, there's a difference between the two that I've learned as I grew up, as I got older.
Mm-hmm.
There's a situation called Islam, which is religion. And I created a name called Islam. A lot of things that man made or man orders is one thing, what God orders is another. So if a man wants to have more than one woman, which they do without even permission, they do that every day. They have 2 and 3 different women they go with. They have no commitment to either one of them, and you know how that ends up, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I feel if you have one wife, it's more than enough to try to control or try to work with families. Now, there is a saying, when a woman can't have any more children and a man wants to have more children, overseas, they pick another wife. The only time they would have another wife if they want to have more children. But the only way of that, the wife have to actually choose the other wife. They don't tell you the little fine footnotes, and I've been learning a little bit this at a time. If I went overseas right now, I'm not married, and I can't have children. I don't think I can have any more children. So if I went over there, I wouldn't mind marrying a man with more than one wife, because I'd be another wife, and I can't have children, and I would be happy with it. I wouldn't have a problem living over there.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I wouldn't do it.
Tell me about your 9th degree black belt and how did that come about?
It took a lot of time, years. A lot of times people grow into their martial arts with a belt over time. As a scholar would gain more knowledge over time. You know what I mean? I started at a very young age, little black belts here, black belt there,
There was a reason why you had to get that.
Yeah, because I was real short.
Okay.
I was like really short, and I was, I would have confrontations with, little girls and stuff like that, little boys, and I had a person to teach me martial arts so I wouldn't hurt myself. So when I saw how easy it was to really knock somebody out, that really made me happy, because I was a little bitty kid, and the bigger the kid is, the easier it is to knock them out or win the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So after I started learning the martial arts, after 13, I just started growing and growing and growing, and I got big. So I had less confrontations with anybody because I was a big girl. So nobody don't want to really mess with a big girl. But I learned it for not only to fight, to defend myself, but to have good health, staying in shape, that kind of thing.
Did the religion come in the way of doing that with you getting the black belt?
It didn't stop me at all. No. Once I learned it and they found out I knew it, they asked me to be the instructor to teach women martial arts or women self-defense. So it was an asset for me to know my skills, and they actually opened a door for me to train certain girls and women self-defense. So it was really in our favor. It was a good thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a bad thing. It didn't keep me from it or anything. I thought it would, but it didn't, because a lot of our women had to learn how to sew, cook, take care of their kids, martial arts, that kind of things like that.
Okay.
So it didn't stop me.
As much as a follower of Islam you are, it is clear that you respect other religions in the United States. And the United States is not a secular country. And in God, we believe may be different. God, you say that you have a profound interest in learning about other religions. You received and you got a degree from a Christian college. And at that graduation speech, you talked about Christian king of Ethiopia providing sanctuary to Prophet Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
What message do you have for people who are using religion to divide?
Yeah, that's a bad thing. And I think a lot of people throughout the years and centuries, they've used religion to divide and conquer. The more I learned about my own religion, I learned about Christianity as well. We have Christians in our family. The doctrine of Christianity and the doctrine that has in the Christian Bible and the doctrine that they have in the Holy Quran and the doctrine that they have in the Torah, the history of the ethnic spiritual conquests are all in these books. It might be delivered in a different way, but the factual facts of the prophets, most importantly, was all the same. Now, of course, the Torah is strictly for the Jewish people. And because of the act of Moses being a Jewish descendant or Hebrew, and he spoke the words of the commandments that God sent down a message to him. But when he sent down the message to Moses, it was an example for the people, the Jewish people, to follow those doctrines. Some followed and some didn't. And they were in the Torah as they are. And hadn't ever, and they've been changed different from time to time. In the Christian Bible, it has it, but the doctrine has been tampered with over many centuries. Pages has been lost over many centuries. The addition of certain things in those Bibles from the South were changed to justify slavery, to follow the white slave masters for the Afro-American people at that time. At the same time, it was done, but yet at the same time, they made it their business so Black people could never read, so they would find out the truth. And this was their attempt to keep the truth from the slaves about the truth about the Bible. As the Bible indoctrinated a lot of paganism in the Bible, and it changed the messages, that they had in the Bible. So they mixed paganism up with Christianity. And that was brought on about the kings or the rulers at that time. Say, if you didn't love the king and devote yourself to the king, and you devoted yourself to God that's in your Bible, they knew that would never work because they didn't care what they did or how they did. People wouldn't change once they had the true word from their holy book. So instead of trying to beat them at it, which they couldn't, it's best to just join them. So if you can't beat somebody, you join them. And they joined them about adding paganism rituals with their Christian rituals to make profit. Okay? So that took away the essence of truth, in the Bible. But fortunately, we were blessed that the Quran was blessed not to be tampered with, ever. And so far, up until that time, until now, it hasn't been. Now, they have a lot of hadiths in the it's a lot of hadiths is not, there's some in the Quran, but there are hadiths in separate books that's not from the Quran. That's the only thing you have to watch out for, false hadiths. But it's not the Quran. The only hadiths that are practiced that is pure is from the Quran. So that's what I enjoyed about learning about all the religions. In fact, the gods that we pray to is actually boils down to only one deity, and that's the Creator. They just have people name it whatever they want to name it, whatever their language, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's only one Creator, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So we all actually pray to the same God, the same deity, that is the Creator of life.